all your smiling faces. Happy Thursday. For those of you who do not know, my name is Marika Scott McFadden. I'm the Deputy Borough President here in Boogie Down, the Bronx. And we'll do introductions to start out with. And to my left is
Martha Savio, the General Counsel for Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.
Tom McKinney, Director of Community Board.
Shannon Knox, Council Member Salamanca's office.
Bill Hall, Chair, Ward 12.
George Flores, Community Board 12.
Good morning, here again, District Manager, Community Board 8. Boris Porter, Vice Chair, Community Board 8.
Emmanuel Martinez, Chair of Community Board 7.
Lashonda Dotson, Community Coordinator, Community Board 5.
Lori Austin, Chair of Community Board 3.
Roberto Principal, Chair, Community Board 2.
Good morning, Ralph Alcedero, Manager, Bronx Community Board 2.
Good morning, Second Office, Manager Board.
Mary Halpin, Director of Borough Operations for the Borough.
out into the gallery.
Jessica Cignarella, New York City Transit.
Mark Holmes, New York City Transit.
Jacqueline Carter, New York City Transit.
Michael Shaw, Department of Finance.
Brian Fargo, New York City Emergency Management.
All the way in the back. Yes, young lady. Yes.
Janet Jenkins, New York City Department of Transportation.
Navarro Lopez, New York City Department of Transportation.
Thank you.
I'm Larry Gunn, New York City Department of Transportation.
Alex Spatz, Borough President's Office.
Eric Kessler, Policy Analyst for the Borough President.
Sabrina, Castillo, New York City Department of Votes.
Thank you. Do we have someone along with you? There's no place to hide here in the Bronx. Now, well, it's Halloween, so. You know what I meant. Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place here today, October 24th, 2019, starting at 9:15 at 851 Grand Concourse, room 819. And as always, I'm happy to see everyone. I'm excited to get started. We're gonna jump into, I guess, one of my favorite topics. We're gonna talk about voting today, yay. Civic engagement, always a exciting topic, and we have a presenter here from New York City Campaign Finance Board, Sabrina Castillo, and you're the Director of Partnerships and Outreach from New York City Votes. So come on. Okay, now, clicker. Do you need assistance?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us. My team and I are really excited to be here because we are planning for 2020. But you'll notice that it also says 21, and that's really what I'm going to go through. So NYC Votes has launched some ambitious goals to get the community out to vote. And so before I start the presentation, I just want to give you a little bit of background on the narrative and the work that we're trying to do. We really try to concentrate on voter turnout. We'll still be heavily focused on voter registration, but New York City has nearly 5 million registered voters. But any given municipal election, anywhere between 23 to under 25% will come out to vote. And our federal election, we will get up into the high numbers between 45 and 50. But again, we have 5 million, so that means on a federal, nearly half are not showing up, and even more are not showing up for municipal elections. So I just want to put that out there as I kind of go through the presentation. Happy to take questions. But what we're really trying to do is build partnerships and making sure that we are in the communities trying to do this work. So the New York City Campaign Finance Board, as you know, if you're not familiar with us, we're an independent, nonpartisan city agency. We administer the New York City Campaign Finance Board, and we provide New Yorkers with information around elections. So the voter guide and voting.nyc, all those tools and resources do come out of our agency. But NYC Votes is the nonpartisan voter engagement initiative of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. And these are some of the resources that we do provide for the community. We do voter registration, we do advocacy, we do get out the vote, voter education, we produce the voter guide, we also produce the official debates and forums for municipal elections, and on special elections we'll do that as well. We do outreach to underrepresented populations. We've done days of actions at NYC developments, homeless shelters, areas where we know we have low voter participation, and we'll do door knocking around voter registration because we understand that getting people out to vote requires some connection and a conversation and giving people the information that they need to understand what that means. And that's where we go into understanding NYC elections and voting patterns. We meet with community-based organizations, and we're able to provide data around what does voting look like in your neighborhood, because it does differ from district to district, neighborhood to neighborhood, block to block. There are different patterns that are across the city that are different. We do youth engagement. We have in the past planned Student Voter Registration Day. We also this summer did a workshop for over 1,500 young people through the SYEP DYCD program. That was very effective because what we did is we did go out and do voter registration and we did workshops, but more importantly what we really wanted to do was understand where was the disconnect with young people. So we created a public meeting where we invited young people, but it was led by young people and planned by young people. And we were astonished that about 100 people under the age of about 25 came out to testify. And in some cases, we train students to testify because they don't understand this forum that we're accustomed to. So as we head into 2020, we envision a city where New Yorkers has an equal ability to engage actively in their democracy, regardless of their backgrounds or barriers. And so our participation model goes from getting engaged, getting informed, register, vote, influence, and run for office. So usually we used to start with register. And then people would register to vote. We registered nearly about 17,000 young people to voter registration day. And then we would ask young people later, we would give them calls, and they didn't really understand what was next. And some of them didn't remember that they registered. So now we want to start through engagement. And voters are more significantly likely to return to the polls during a local midterm election if they vote in the federal election. So 2020 for us is a year where we're really going to hook people. We really want, people are going to come out in 2020. It's like everything around them, if they have any interest in participating in an election, there's going to be a lot of information. But what we know is that in 2021, there's going to be a big drop-off. So our goal is to double youth in 2021. So New York City voters under 30 participate in presidential elections at nearly the same rate as overall in New York City. So unlike other states or other cities where you'll hear that there's a low youth voter participation, in New York City that's actually not the case. It's a little bit lower than the average general population vote, but not by much. Maybe like 5 on an election where maybe there's not a lot going on, 10%, but young people in New York City come out for federal elections. So in the last mayoral election, the turnout was 13%. And it was pretty much the same before that and the previous one as well. So we go from young people participating at a 40-45% rate in a federal election, and then it drops to about a 13-15% rate on a municipal election. And so that's the patterns that we're really looking at. So young people are registering, they are voting in federal elections, but when it comes to municipal elections, they're not. So we want to start these conversations this year coming up. So just to give you an example here, because there's a primary coming up in Congressional District 15. Sorry, I realize that on this computer our slides get off a little bit, but 18 to 24s in the general election, 16 came out at 42%. See, it's not much lower than 25 to 29 in general, and then overall in New York City. But when it came to the general election 17, which is a municipal, it dropped to like 5%. And this is youth population for this particular district. And we're able to do this district by district and show you what the patterns are, because depending on what the pattern really looks like is how we want to be able to go in and engage and try to do the engagement that we need to do around that. So our goal is to have 250,000 young people turn out in the next citywide election. This means we need to engage almost half of this throughout 2020, and we can't do that alone. So some of the highlights that are happening is in 2018, young people and newly registered voters turned out at an impressive rate, something we weren't expecting. 18 to 29 are more likely to vote in a presidential election. So these are the target audiences that we're looking at. And again, as I mentioned, voters are more significantly to come back if they've participated in a presidential election. So we are trying to focus on that. And the next highlight for 2020 is 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register in 2020. But we don't want people to register when they're 16 in 2020, and when they get to 18, one, they forgot, right? We put all these efforts and all these programs to get them registered, and they forgot. Or they don't understand what their role is, or specifically what the process is like. So we want to start making sure that we're creating programs where there's engagement components. Some of the challenges is that new policies does not mean that there's going to be a voter turnout increase. Again, the 16 and 17-year-old is a great way to start engaging young people, but we want to make sure we start to create voting legacies in areas where maybe it's not being built or created within the home, right? And that it's being created by the community. There's a learning curve on how election day affects day-to-day in some of the communities, especially around young people. There's a lack of clarity around elections, there's a lot of dates, and there's a lot of information that goes out to them, and they just don't really know how to understand it. There's no online voter registration, which is the simplest way for them to be able to quickly engage and register to vote. So it does take an extra layer into how they've been doing. And these are the challenges that we've received feedback from those workshops where I said we talked to about like 1,500 young people and asking them what was holding them back. So to double youth engagement turnout in the next mayoral election, we will have a citywide youth-centered campaign. We will launch a peer-to-peer model. So this is where I'm going to go through specifically how this affects the Bronx, but we are not coming in from the position of like, let's just get registered, let's just get them registered and let's just get them to the polls and they should vote because it's their right. It's actually not what we've been hearing from young people. They want the peer-to-peer model. So we want to know, who are the engaged young people in your communities? Who are the influencers? How can we give them the tools and resources? We've talked to young people who have launched large advocacy campaigns, and when we talked to them about what happened, they said, well, somebody trained me. Someone trained me on how to do this work, and I was able to influence my my peers. And so a peer-to-peer model for us is very important. I can go and talk to a high school, and I can go and talk to different young people, but like, they're gonna look at me and say like, yeah, that's just another adult telling me what to do. So that's very important for us right now. In-person activation points, we want to go into the communities. We want to make sure that we're engaging, that we're talking, that we're having conversations that matter so that people can follow through on registering to vote. Influencer development, again, making sure that we know who are the young people in your districts that are engaged, that are coming to you, that are asking questions, and they actually don't have to be that they're already involved in elections. Maybe they've done really great on like a social campaign. Maybe they're advocating for their neighbors. Maybe it's somebody who's making a phone call for somebody in their community. Those are the type of young people that we want to be able to train. I recently had a conversation when I went to a youth council and youth council of NYCHA, and there was young people there presenting projects, and they had never worked in elections, but a lot of the feedback they were getting back was like, talk to your elected officials, do this and do that, and I think that that's great. But they don't have the tools and resources, but they have the desire. They showed up somewhere, they talked about a project, and they're trying to better their community. And so those are the young people that we want to be talking to and training them on how to do voter registration, how to do get out the vote, and how to make sure they're engaging their peers. We will have digital strategies that we'll be launching. Our agency will be able to provide tools and resources for your offices, for your communities, for any CBO that you'd like for us to train. That's one of the services that we'll be able to provide. And here, I'm not able to pull it up here, but we're gonna email it out, and then you can email the map that we talked about. So why I'm here is because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of tactics that we're working on, and there's a lot going on. But one of the things that we've been doing a lot at the NYC Votes is reviewing data and patterns. And so while every borough has low voter participation across the city, this happens in Queens, it happens in Brooklyn, Staten Island, Manhattan, one of the things that's driving up youth voter turnout is areas where there's already high voter participation. So young people in some areas are turning out really high, and in other areas are turning out really low. One of the things that we saw, and I'll email out this map because it's an interactive map, and we'd be happy to come and meet with you and talk about what is going on in the communities and how we can help, is that overall in the Bronx, 18 to 24 has the lowest population, and it's not just in pockets, it's the entire Bronx. So for us, we don't see that as we need to go in there and just register more people. No, we want to know how to engage members of the community. How do we get more people active? What are the resources and tools that are missing so that we can go out? Because when we see patterns and we see a map, and we do see, like I said, pockets and boroughs, but when we see an entire borough that is not being represented and people are not coming out, and I do understand that we get the question a lot about, is there elections going on, and is there places for people to participate, and was there an active open seat election? While that does influence elections, overall the pattern shows that the numbers amongst young people in the Bronx consistently still come lower than anybody else in the city, even when there is an election, a competitive election. So that's why we came out to present. We met with the Borough President's office to talk about specifically how we can partner, what are the tools and resources, what do you have going on in 2020, and how can we train? You know, traditionally we've gone heavily into we'll train you on voter registration, we'll come out and do voter registration, but that is not what's getting people to the polls. That's getting people registered. Again, over about 5 million people, under 1 million people are not registered in the city. So the bigger issue that we're trying to tackle in the city is getting people out to vote. Is there any questions?
My first question is that you said that youth voting is relatively the same as older voters.
On federal elections.
On federal elections. Why are you focusing on youth?
Oh, because our goal is to get 250,000 young people to vote in 2021.
Why is that your goal?
So we can double youth voter turnout in the municipal election. Because municipal elections, young people are coming in at 13%.
Why are we not trying to just drive voter turnout, period, full stop?
Right.
Why are you focusing on youth when there doesn't seem to be a significant difference in the number of young people versus older people?
Yeah.
I don't want to say old people, older, seasoned.
Yeah. So I'll take that in, and I can send you. I'll answer that in two parts. The first one is we are focusing on overall voter turnout. We do have a campaign for NYC Votes and Get Out the Vote, and making sure that all CBOs are getting trained to be able to register and get out the vote. So we do have another goal for that. And we also have a goal on immigration and newly naturalized citizens. And I can send you overall our goals for the whole 2020-2021. The reason why we came to the borough's office is because, as you were saying, so when we see specifically in one area that young people are coming out for federal, and then when their lives are going to be most impacted, which is a municipal election, and less than 15% are coming up to the polls, and those are the young people that are talking about the everyday issues that are affecting them. We want to be able to increase voter participation amongst young people in the municipal election. But we're not going to get them if we don't engage them in 2020, because it is harder to get a young person to have be a first-time voter in a municipal election. So we do have a larger strategy. I was only presenting on youth specifically because we will be focusing on the Bronx for the voter turnout for 2020 into 2021, and all the other areas in the other boroughs that also have low voter participation for youth. So does that clarify a little bit?
No. I'll open up to the rest of it. I got you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. I want to piggyback off of something what she was saying, and maybe you answered, but do you have a breakdown of the percentages of other cities in the state and other states? And in comparison, where are we with other cities in the state and other states? Are we on the high end of this 25% turnout and then 50% at the federal level, or are we on the low end?
Well, we're, as for just overall participation, we're on the low end.
New York.
Overall.
New York City.
State.
New York
New York
State.
State overall is on the low end in general across. I would have to give back to you specifically on youth participation compared to other cities and states, right? But in New York City, if we're just comparing young people's turnout to general population, then it sort of comes in the same. So
Well, not just the youth or young people. The
so
total number.
we're in the low end. We're about, I mean, last I checked, we were 45th.
45th
On turnout
in the state,
in the country.
in the country. So we're
Yeah.
the 45th state
Yeah.
in
Right,
voter
when it comes to
turnout.
voter turnout, yeah. And I can send out more accurate information because we haven't been focusing on comparison across. We've been doing really deep analysis on voter turnout when it comes to what is affecting it, what is bringing it down, is it income, is it education level? And so the way data works is like if we're asking the right questions, we get the right information. So any question you have here that you want us to dig into, we're happy. When we met with the borough president, they brought up a good point, like how does 311 phone calls and that information reflects amongst how people are turning out to vote, and so we're going to start looking into that. So we're here to try to understand specifically what each community needs, and we're happy to do that.
Okay. Also, I just wanted to say that there is online voter registration through
Yeah.
DMV.
Through
So,
there is.
so there is online voter
Yeah,
registration.
there is online voter registration through the DMV. When we were meeting with young people, they found that as one of the challenges because a lot of them don't have a state ID at times, and so when they do get into that process, they're able to do that. And we also have to have a DMV customer ID account, and so they found that to be a challenge because they didn't even know that they could do that. And so that was one of the things. It's not like going into like a private
So they
link and
didn't,
doing
so
that.
you're saying they didn't know? But we
No,
want to
they
make
don't
sure that
have-
everyone knows that
Yeah.
there is online.
Yeah, they don't have, a
registration.
lot of them don't have state IDs. At least a lot of the young people, when we were doing the workshops, with some of the feedback we were getting, that they don't get state IDs at 16 or 17, so again, it's not a general, overall consensus, but it's just, as we've sort of been talking to young people, that's what we've been getting back.
George,
Yeah.
and then, Mr. McManus.
Thank you, Madam Deputy, Borough President. To echo the point that the Deputy Borough President made 2 seconds ago, I'm curious about the focus solely on young people. You stated at the beginning of your presentation that there are 5 million registered voters in the city of New York. I just looked up the last mayoral election, the primary results, not the general. De Blasio won with 326,000 votes, the primary, which amounts to the general election in the city of New York. In total, there were less than 1 million voters in that election. So why are you not targeting the overall population? Because what happens is even though that you engage the young people and they vote in this next municipal election, let's say you got 100%, that does not mean that they're going to carry over. We voted for the first time, and some people, I can only speak for myself, I'm 44 years old. I voted, but I've been active in Bronx politics, in municipal services from the very beginning. So I'm just curious because all the challenges that you mentioned are very real, and you lose those people. So the thing to me is try not to lose them. we just went through an exercise last year and with this borough president's office and the New York City Charter Revision Commission. None of the recommendations that I made, for example, on land use were taken up. In fact, you've only solidified and fortified the council's position on land use items. So it's the elected officials who, they claim they want this, but then act against those interests. So, yes, it's a challenge, and there's a cynicism, especially amongst young people. I looked at AOC's numbers. She didn't get more votes than Serrano did in his district. So there's no truth to the fact that you're encouraging more younger people if you have better candidates or anything like that. She got less votes than Serrano. Serrano's been there for 20-something years. So again, I don't know what your aim is here or what the purpose of engaging young people, because New York State has been a Democratic state for years. And what you said before, this is the first time that we're going to have early voting, or that you can now do this online. I mean, I think that that's shameful, especially in a place that claims to be as progressive as we are. This shouldn't be a heavy list. You should be able to engage children or these young folks in every CUNY college. You should set up election booths and all that stuff. You should do that, especially for those seniors in high school that are 17 or 18 or whatever. You should be engaging all of these sorts of things. So again, I think your strategy should be to end the cynicism. Give the public more input, because that's when you get people more engaged.
To echo what you just said, that is actually something we did see through our data, that better candidates in certain areas actually did not drive up voter participation by young people. What brought up some of those were people who were already voting and just increased their participation if they were already voting in these local elections. So again, what we've done at NYC Votes is build out strategies and programs that are going to be very targeted in certain areas, youth, immigrant communities, and general elections. So we still will be having programming around get out the vote, voter registration initiatives around general population. We have an outreach coordinator who's meeting with CBOs, making sure they're trained to do voter registration. We're taking the same similar tactics that we're doing here across. I'm only presenting specifically on youth because there is this sense of in a municipal election, they're not being represented, and we do want to start to build long-lasting voting culture, and we have to get them in at a younger age. So specifically, this strategy is about that, but I'm happy to come and introduce the other strategies. Like I said, we have one on immigrant communities. We'll still be doing all our general voting population outreach through the voter guide, through GOTV, train the trainers on voter registration, and making sure we're meeting with CBOs. We will actually be having large trainings that we're either hosting online for those who can't make it, and we'll be going into boroughs to making sure that all CBOs are trained and they have the materials that they need for 2020 and as they head into 2021. But we are an agency with a small team, and we do have to focus and make sure that our resources are targeted in certain campaigns. And so while we will still maintain our general tactics for general get out the vote, that's really important to us. It's something we've been doing for the past 10 years, and we want to make sure we continue to do that, and it's actually strengthened. We're having 8 phone banks for early voting. They started last weekend, and we had Saturday, Sunday last week, and we have this Saturday, Sunday, and we also have Monday, Tuesday. So this doesn't mean we stop doing voter outreach to general population, but we've actually never had a strategy on how to create that long-lasting voting culture for a younger age group.
Can you be specific? What exactly are you doing to reach young people? You said you never had a strategy. What is the strategy?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So the peer-to-peer model is the way that we're heading. So we are actually in development stages right now. That's why we came out. So I'm hoping afterwards we can come and meet in your communities. We want to hear from young people in your community. We want to understand why they're not showing up, what motivates them, what are they interested in, what are their #1 issues. And so that's what we did over the summer. We had 5 interns who went out into the community and they spoke to everyone. We gathered that information. We came back with some challenges that we had to tackle. We'll be building a youth advisory board to help us do this. But a lot of these efforts are going to be dealt with young people at the forefront and at the table. But we don't want it just to be a handful selective of group of people that we just picked and so forth. So we'll be, after we meet with all the borough presidents and we meet with different offices, we'll be launching something where we probably ask people to submit young people who they think should be on these youth advisory boards. And the second part that we're doing is a digital strategy. The agency has enlisted a youth strategy agency. This agency has been responsible for campaigns such as like the March for Our Lives, the climate rally that just happened. And so having people who've already engaged people at a different level is important for us. And so we're in a development stage right now. And we'll be launching strategies and campaigns in 2020. Right
Okay,
before the
so
primary.
like when we started this, I did preface this with that this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. So if you already have a list of challenges here, it's debatable at what rate that they present a challenge to youth voters or even voters at all. Why isn't there already a strategy? It's almost 2020 in another 2 months. This seems like this is going to be an issue to try to put together a strategy and then also get people, young people or people in general, to start voting in 2020, which you have a primary fairly
Right.
early in the year.
Yeah.
So this seems like, I don't know, something that's not destined for success.
So as an agency, our mandate is for 2021, and so we do have to plan a long-term goal that gets us into 2021. That's what we're mandated for us. For us, it is important to start engaging in 2020.
But 2020 is a federal election.
Yeah, right. So we are working towards that right now. We will have, so the first thing that we're launching on some of our plans is a CUNY summit in January. So there are things that we have in place, but what we understand is that it has to be under a larger campaign, and that's what we'll be launching in. But we don't want to launch a campaign without hearing from young people in the communities that we're trying to be in.
Right, but you just said you did young people, interns or whatever into
Yeah.
the community. Then you got these challenges.
Yes.
And then you're gonna go back and talk to more young people, but the young people that are going to engage in the summit are the young people that are easily accessible, or
Yes.
the most easily accessible.
Yes.
So, again, why are we
So we're
targeting just those young people? And we're still at a point, it's October, the primary is next June.
Right, right.
That's a short window that we haven't proven to be able to be active within that amount of time. So this
Right.
this is,
Yeah, and there's still a lot of.
and there's no strategy.
Right, there's a lot of
attached to it.
moving pieces. We are launching with
I'm so
summits and a
sorry.
youth advisory board, and we are gonna task those people at those summits and on the youth advisory board to plan out what our engagement is. We actually do have some events planned for January that are already in place, but I don't have all the plans on me where I can like really tell you specifically the dates and the hours and the CBOs. We've already been talking to people. There is a lot of moving pieces. Generally speaking, I would agree with you that it's a short span of time, and you know, at agencies, we don't tend to move that fast, but we are confident that we're going to be launching something really meaningful in January. Yeah. And I'm happy to continue having the conversation, and as plans and events sort of come up, make sure that you're involved and making sure that we're inviting the right people.
I'm sure everyone here wants to be invited to all of the events. I don't mean to speak for any of them, but there are obvious challenges to your presentation around, you know, it's super focused.
It is.
Which we all want young people to be involved, but there are challenges there around that element of it, and then there are challenges around timing, that both of which are not being fully examined from my point of view. But I don't want to dominate. Please, Mr. McManus.
Yeah, I just have one question, a few comments. When you say federal, there's Congress, there's Senate, and there's the president. What do you mean?
Presidential election.
Presidential, that's a big difference from
Yeah.
federal. Secondly, when you have term limits, the second term of a person, the turnout is tremendously low. I mean, when Bill de Blasio was voted in the second time, nobody wants to run against him. So, I mean, you're going to have a problem with that. And thirdly, I went on retreat when I was about 37 or 38, and the priest says, well, most people don't get involved until they're in their 30s or their 40s. So I hope you can get this thing done, but unless you eliminate term limits, you're going to have that lag, and then you're going to say, well, my vote don't count because that person, nobody's running against them. And then the next time around, you have a possibility of people not turning out. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we want it, that's part of what the engagement piece of it is before registration, is we want people to come out and not only vote, but participate and have an active voice in their community. So we want them to go to public meetings, we want them to, and it is a big challenge at that age, so we're not denying that at all. But we did have we had 100 young people come and testify at our hearing, public hearing, and we don't even get that much in our general hearing, so we were excited to see that.
Mr. Hall?
Okay, I just want to say I think it's a good idea to target young people because we used to have civic classes in school and we no longer have them, so they have no idea who our elected officials are and how you move in that circle, so I think it's a good idea. My question to you, though, is do you have a strong marketing budget for this?
Do we, yeah, so we're engaging a youth strategy agency, and then as an agency for general election, we do have some marketing budget, but a lot of that will rely more on, so I can share more about specifically what the agency's doing on general voter turnout when it comes to ad buys and so forth, but we do have a budget as an agency for that.
And just another point, I don't know what your relationships with the high schools are, but if you can get into the high schools, I think that's a good point in terms of communicating with these young people.
Right. So Student Voter Registration Day is still part of what the city is committed to, so that will still be going on, where every high school does have voter registration on one day, and it creates a movement to be able to do that. We will still continue to go into high schools and even middle schools to do voter workshops where we talk about civic engagement and what elected offices are and what they represent for them. So we will still continue to do that as part of this initiative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Dutton?
Yeah. Good morning. How you doing? Let me just, we as community boards, we have community-based organizations, civic associations, tenant associations, a number of youth service providers. To engage with this initiative, all they would have to do is go on this link. I mean, what do you suggest is the best means for organizations to engage with this initiative, and at the same time, what direct resources are going to be made available to youth service providers or other organizations to help increase voter turnout, registration, enrollment, turnout in their respective in our respective districts as community boards?
Yeah, over the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing an online portal where people will be able to log on as partners and specifically pick the areas that they want to focus, which is general, community outreach, youth, immigrant populations, and so forth. And we'll have tools and resources there from election calendars, voter registration training, what it's going to take to be successful to get out the vote, and actual GLTVs. And then we'll have physical trainings, both at our offices and at each individual, like CBOs, if you'd like. We can do that. And so we do a lot of train-the-trainer models around voter registration, get out the vote, and engagement. And then we'll have actual tools and resources. Some of you at the community boards probably get our spotlights from Matthew, which gives you specifically all the digital assets that you need to be able to promote the election dates and what's coming up. So we'll be including those and adding more resources to that and tools. So we will have voter engagement toolkits that will be going out. And those won't be specifically youth focused. While we will have some youth focus, we'll also have some general get out the vote partner toolkits available.
Thank you.
Mr. Crespo?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Deputy. I see that you're saying 13.5% are youth votes, but I have to venture towards the side of the Deputy Borough President. There's an 86% higher amongst older people in the city. And in particularly, because I used to run a lot of elections, it's seniors that go out to vote. And you have to get the seniors to come out to vote to get the numbers high. I understand that the youth have to come out and vote, but that's been an issue since the beginning of time, of how do you get the youth to come out.
Right.
You know, you're not going to be able to get them all out. And I understand you got a certain number that you're looking at, but I think that the bigger picture is how do you get the older generation to go out and vote, so like that they feel the ones that are working, those that may be on public assistance, that do have an interest in what's going on, and as well as the seniors, because the seniors, the minute they hear you're going to cut something from them, they go out.
Yeah.
And
So
they hurt.
Through LL29, we do have a partnership with the Department for Aging. We've done some really great work with them. We'll continue to do that. We do work with some great CBOs across the city that do target various populations, both general and on the older, and specifically people who are might be interested in, like you said, their services and making sure that they're represented. So we're not going to stop doing that, but we are trying to take on this big task, like you said, like how do you change this narrative, and how do we change this pattern of young people consistently, probably, like you said, from the beginning of time, at some point or another, just not really understanding like what their role is or what their power is within this electoral process. So we want to be able to participate in changing that narrative.
And the only reason I say it is because I try to get my kids to start voting at 18. They refused. Now they hit 33, 34, 35. They're in there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I'm saying that somewhere along the way it clicks, but not at the early age. I don't see it.
I think what we're all trying to say is there's a lifespan of the
Yes.
voter that ebbs and flows in terms of the connection with voting and engagement. And it's not, you can't capture it with just one number, who voted in the last federal election. Right. There are too many dynamics that affect the turnout for an election to say, we're going to focus on the youth, because for some reason we know that there are challenges around that group, because it may not actually be what a young person articulates, because there's so many other issues.
Right.
So I think everyone here that has spoken in regards to this is saying to be cautious around looking at one number, one data set, and developing a policy, i.e. target the youth around that one data set, when we know from even anecdotal or personal experience that the lifespan of the voter is way more complicated than did I vote in the last election.
Right.
Without having that actually being conceptualized in your strategy, then we're just saying we're targeting youth and developing a plan and planning to develop a plan, and we'll generate a plan in the future. But we may not get the goals that we're seeking because of the fact that that data set is not fully representative of what's needed.
Right. No, and I agree. So part of what we're doing is making sure that we're getting asked the right questions. We don't have a copy of our voter analysis report, but I'll make sure we email it out so that everyone has it, and all the data, not just for youth, but across the city on voter turnout on every population and community is there. And we want to also focus on, like you said, those external factors of like, it's not just about the data set. And that's really what we're aiming for here. So we'll still be able to continue, and we're happy to come back and talk about the resources and tools that are available to all communities and CBOs around voter engagement, because we do have those as a resource and as something that we're also focused on. But we do have a campaign that we're developing that's hyper-focused on youth turnout.
While we have you here, is there anything that you can speak about in terms of the new early voting?
Yes. So outside there's these youth early voting. You have one right there. Yeah. So we have some of those. You can feel free to take some of those. Early voting starts on Saturday. We'll probably announce it today, right? We were able to secure partnerships with Lyft and Uber. They'll be giving 50% off because not all the early voting sites are as accessible as possibly your election day. So we're just trying to make sure we're providing as much resource as possible, but always not. We do have some CBOs that are working on giving rides to people on early voting, so we can send some of that information. But early voting starts on Saturday. We do have the calendar with the hours. We're doing 8 GOTV phone banks to people, making sure that everyone is aware of that the polls are open and what this means. And for us, it's really important just to make sure that we're getting out the word. We do have some digital assets where we're sharing, and as an agency, we did an early voting PSA that we launched, and it's also being ran in multiple platforms.
So are all election sites early voting sites?
No.
Can you give us a description of what is an early voting site and how to find one?
You can go to voting.nyc to find them. I actually don't know the details of specifically how each one was picked, but your election day site could be different than your early voting site. And it was picked by population. The Board of Elections has added a few. There's certainly not enough. And it's something as an agency we've also taken a stand on and made recommendations to the Board of Elections, and that we'll be having a public hearing on that in December, so I can send information on that. But I actually don't work on specifically the policy on how the specifics on each site and why they were picked that way, but just in our outreach, we know that there's not enough, and we know that they might not be accessible to your community members, specifically
How do we know
because
that they're not enough?
Huh?
How do we know that they're not enough?
Well, it's not that there's not enough, but we could have more. Specifically, for some people, your voting site could be across the street on election day, and then 15 blocks away on early voting, right? And so it becomes more of how many do we have. The
Which
Board
is
of Elections,
within the federal guidelines of voting,
Right.
so that to be clear, 15 blocks away would not be against the guidelines around
yeah, I can send you our position on that, on what our recommendation was to the BOE for how to increase some of those. But it doesn't work on a voting center model, meaning that you can't go to any one. It's an assigned early voting site. And so, traditionally in some states, you can go to one, like a voting center, and then you can go there and vote. Here, you have a specific early voting site.
And who's eligible for early voting?
Anyone who is registered to vote. So 18 and over. If you're registered to vote, to be able to register to vote, you have to be 18 or over and a citizen. And if you register to vote before the deadline in October that just passed, I think it was the 10th, you are eligible to vote on Saturday, starting Saturday. And the hours do differ, so I don't have them specifically there, but they differ. They end late sometimes, early other times, and so they also don't have consistent hours across, and that has to do with manpower and ability to keep them open. But the hours for election day still remain.
Just a small comment. I've been involved in my union elections for 50 years and general elections for the last 40 years. This is nice, but if it's a palm card, it has to fit into your palm, It doesn't fit into your pocket or to your, so people take it, or they don't take it, or if you try and pass it off to somebody, it's just a little bit too large. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir,
Yes.
did I see your hand up? I lost it. Did you have a question? No? Oh, I thought I saw your hand. All right, Seth.
Good morning. Because you're introducing such a dynamic change related to voting in this state, it would have been good if you had at least targeted those areas where you're going to have specific poll sites where there would be early voting, because it's really going to generate confusion going down the line next month for general voting. And you actually may have people that say, okay, I went to my polling site, I didn't know it was not an early polling site, and then that shuts them out, and they said, I don't even want to be bothered going forward into next month, based upon some of the points that you raised, that it is just not a general federal election. So people may just be turned off. So I think some better targeting should have taken place with this. Also, you should have done some early outreach and let people know, Because most of the information that people have received, at least in my community board, people have received them by pamphlets, but it's not specificity attached to them. So some type of change needs to happen definitely before next year. So there's some identification to the sites.
Well, there's a mailer that goes out.
Right, but
There's a mailer to the
right,
voter register.
and some people called my office because they hadn't received the mailings.
Yeah. So the mailings that come from the Board of Elections don't come from us. The only thing that we do send out is the voter guide. So that's like the voter guide that has all this one has like the ballot proposals on it, and it has the candidate profiles who are running for the public advocate office. But the actual mailers, we don't do mailings as much because we certainly just don't have the budget to be able to do such a large mailing for everyone who is registered. But what we do have and what we do try to promote as much as possible is a text campaign, so people can text a certain number to make sure that they're receiving the most up-to-date information. And we send those out as regularly as starting 4 or 5 days before the election. So we have a Take the Vote challenge. But specifically, we would like to send out more mailings. We just haven't been able to do as many as we like. But we do send out the voter guide, and we do take advantage of that and try to put as much content in there because that does go out to every registered person.
Any additional questions? Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you so much. And Marisol, you can email my information to everyone and Jordan's, and we will be more than happy to meet and have any other discussions. We are open to working with you all. Thank you.
Well, we'll happily move on with our agenda. Next on our agenda is Bronx Bus Network redesign and a draft of the final plan. So we would welcome our presenters, Jacqueline Carter, Friends of the Bronx, also AKA Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations, and Jessica Goddess, yes. Jessica, I'm going to mess up your last name. Cignarella. Oh, wonderful. Manager of Bronx Bus Redesign, and all those other folks who'd like to join. DLT, come on up. Oh, got another friend to the Bronx.
Am I good now? Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
So good to see all of you. As I was introduced, I'm glad it's known. My name is Jacqueline Carter, Assistant Director, Government and Community Relations. Good morning to all of you. I'm so glad we're in this room and I get a chance to see all of you at one time. While Jessica's setting up, I want to be able to explain to you exactly what we're going to do. Over the past year, we've gathered all available bus service data. Okay. Should I stop? Okay. Over the past year, we gathered all available bus service data and analyzed the demographics of the Bronx to publish our existing condition report, which I know all of you had received, and develop the draft plan, which I know all of you have seen. We engage extensively with the elected officials, with the community boards, and communities throughout the borough. With this analysis and your feedback, and we got a lot of feedback, we developed what you're going to see today, which is the final plan to redesign the Bronx bus network. You personally should thank yourselves before I continue reading, because you're the one that made this plan. The redesign network, that's right, get yourself, because it was all of you. I'm looking at all of you, and I can tell you, all of you really participated in making what you're going to see today. The redesign network established a strong foundation on which we can continue to build a successful network that serves the largest number of riders at the time when they need service the most. Our work on the Bronx bus network will not end with the release of this report, which I know all of you probably have received. I did send it to your offices on Tuesday. So I know all of you probably have received this report. So our work on the bus network will not end with the release of this report or the implementation of the proposed changes, but will continue as we redefine service based on ridership and performance and respond to feedback we receive from the customers. You heard that the Deputy Borough President did introduce Jessica. Many of you have seen her. She's been at your board, she's been at your meetings, and I also want to always thank our partners of DOT. So Commissioner, could you please introduce Janet?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Navardo Lopez, Bronx Borough Commissioner for New York City DOT. And as Jackie said, we'll be presenting a little bit in this presentation, and I want to introduce Janet Jenkins, who's Assistant Commissioner for Transit Development at New York City DOT. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. And the reason why we need to continue to remember this is that we have been partners with DOT since last year. So I'm going to now turn this over to Jessica.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for having us here today. So first, we want to start with some brief highlights of what is included in the final plan. We focused on new service. We have 2 new bus routes, the BX25 and the M125, as well as 1 new express route, the BXM5. We also look to improve bus stop balancing to speed up our buses and get customers where they're going faster. So we are proposing removal of 400 stops within the Bronx. That's about 18% of stops in the entirety of the borough. We're also looking to straighten and simplify routes and improve connections for customers. So you'll see there have been some route extensions and some route realignments to really improve that. And we're also focused on increasing frequency. We heard from customers, other key stakeholders that they wanted more frequent service, particularly on our Crosstown east-west routes. And we're also looking to expand bus priority with our partners at City DOT. Here are some of the strategies we went over for the redesign. Similar to what we said earlier, more direct routing, improved bus stop balancing. Today in the Bronx, the average for bus stop spacing is roughly 882 feet, or about 3 city blocks. In comparison to international peers, they range from about 1,100 to 1,600 in bus stop spacing. I will say we recognize that, and this is mentioned in the final plan, but we were very careful to be very cognizant of anywhere where there is a senior center, a community center, a school or a major university, key destination, or major transfer point to subway or another bus route. Those we factored in to make, so this might seem aggressive to you and less aggressive to some, but we wanted to balance it out to make sure that we didn't negatively affect any customers, a significant number of customers with our removals. Again, we're looking to improve connectivity on those east-west routes. We also, frequency and the expanded priority of, expanded bus priority. So here's a list of the routes that we made more direct. For example, the BX4A, the 6 SBS, 11, 15, 18, 24, 25 is a new route that will operate on Gun Hill Road in parallel with the BX26. There's also the 28, 29, 30, 34, 35, 36, as well as the 4042, Q50 Limited, M100, and the new M125. And the map that you see here is just kind of a taste of the changes that we made in the central Bronx in relation to some of those routes. And more details on this are in the final plan. Going back to the bus stop balancing, one correction here, this says 450, it's 400. And we improved stop spacing in the final plan from that 882 average to roughly 1,100. And it's important to note that for every stop that you remove, you can save anywhere from 20 seconds in travel time to up to a minute, depending on the time period that the bus is operating in. and that routes with fewer stops tend to speed along and really just get customers where they're going faster. And again, as I said before, we can't do that without our partners at DOT and expanding bus priority to even speed things further along. In terms of improved connectivity, one thing to explain is that there were no changes made to the BX5. However, we did expand or extend the BX6 SBS further east along Story Avenue, terminating at Turnbull and Pugsley. So essentially, customers that live in the Soundview area will now have a direct east-west crosstown connection to the rest of the Bronx in the central Bronx. So if you live there today and you're transferring from the 5 to the 6, it's just a one-seat ride now. We extended the BX11 into Parkchester. We expanded the catchment area for the BX18. The new BX25, which was a direct response to what we heard from customers and community members in Co-op City, as well as the BX30. We took off of Gun Hill Road, but we rerouted onto and continuing on Boston Road. Some folks have asked before, why do that if there's already B-line service on Boston Road? The way it works, you're only allowed to get off the bus on a B-line route on Boston Road in terms of the rules with that. So we're giving new transit access, New York City transit access for customers. So they'll be able to go straight down Boston Road, and they weren't able to do that today. And they'll have a direct connection to the Pelham Parkway 25 station. The BX34 we're rerouting to speed it up and utilize those bus lanes on Webster Avenue, get customers where they need to go faster, and bring it down to Fordham Plaza. The BX35 we've extended to West Farms, and the 4042 we've flipped with the BX36. So under this plan, the BX36 will operate as it does today, and instead of going over to East 180th, it will continue on Tremont and go into Manhattan from there. The BX 4042 will go on 180th. And we recognize there's congestion in both of those areas, and those are some of the areas we're looking to target with our bus priority. This here, I'm going to walk you through it slowly. It's what we call an isochrone map. It says improve connectivity. What it's showing you is that these dark areas here, that's new access to jobs for customers that are using the transit system under the final plan. So anything in the light green means that that's where a customer can get today from the central Bronx, right about here, within 45 minutes, anywhere in the light green. Under the final plan, they can get to any of these dark green areas within 45 minutes. So we've expanded access for customers in that travel time. And there's additional maps like this in the final plan that show other different areas. It's an interactive tool that we have that essentially we call her Jane, and it's a little pedestrian. You drop them down, and it shows you where you can get in that time frame, and the time limits can vary as well. And we're working to make that something that's accessible for customers to look at and further kind of figure out how things would change for them in the future. Here is Soundview, showing that similar element of increased access. This would be a direct response or reaction from the BX26 expansion. So see, there's a lot more access here for customers in this area. Here's Co-op City, and you might wonder, where do we drop them? We really drop them right in the heart of it, and then that's when you'll see where they can get in that 45 minutes. High Bridge and Harlem 125th. Now this is where we're increasing frequency or making any kind of service changes for regular bus service. So there's several routes that we've increased frequency on, with the idea being that we want to build an all-day frequent network. So what does that mean? It means that we want customers to be able to walk to a particular bus route or corridor and know that during the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., there will be a bus coming a minimum of every 8 minutes. It says 8 minutes or better because in some cases they might be coming every 5 minutes. This is just to give some general categories for people to kind of grasp onto moving forward. Things I want to point out, we're increasing frequency on the BX4 and 4A. The BX6 SBS, particularly the segment, or 6 local I should say, we've taken the SBS out of Hunts Point. The 6 local will remain there, and we've increased the frequency in the segment between Hunts Point Station down to the market to ensure that no customers there are losing level of service to get to the market. In addition to the BX6 local frequency, we've also increased frequency on the BX11, the BX18, the BX23, the BX29, the 2526. I'll go back to and mention that the BX26 today operates at a certain frequency, and in discussing things with folks in Co-op City, they really wanted a route that comes from Northern Co-op and goes down along Allerton Avenue. So in giving them that, they were okay with us reducing the frequency, basically splitting it between the two routes. So today there's one route doing the same frequency, and in the future it'll be split between two, the BX25 and the BX26. We also improve frequency on the BX28 and 38. You all know that that's a pair on Gun Hill Road. In the draft plan, we were proposing to completely discontinue the 38. Customers didn't like that. They said, no, we want you to keep it. So we kept it, and we gave, in response to customers, a bit of a frequency boost. The 29, the increase in frequency there is in the overnight service. And in addition, 29, the last route that we improve frequency on is the BX41 SBS. So we improve frequency on the key routes where we could with our resources, and did that to really just improve service for customers. Here, we're going to go over the express bus schedule changes. I'm sure a lot of folks have seen in the final plan or heard in the news that there have been some reductions to service for express bus. I'm happy to walk through these one by one or just give some general address to them. What I will say is that in the cases where we've reduced service spans, days of service, or frequency, we have very low ridership on those express trips. Sometimes, in certain cases, depending on the route, you have 7 trips in an hour, and you're carrying in that whole hour only 26 people. And a lot of our express buses, on average, carry less than 15 passengers per trip. And if you imagine an express bus can hold at least double that, we're really not carrying a lot of people on these buses. So we're working to kind of do what we can with our resources to better provide and be more efficient. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Janet now for the bus priority corridors.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. Like Navarro said, I lead the Transit Development Group at New York City DOT. So I just wanted to show you what we are thinking about bus priority corridors. We went through a process looking at many corridors, bus corridors throughout the Bronx, ranking them, analyzing them in terms of bus speeds and bus service, working really closely with MTA to identify where we think bus lanes and other treatments would really help speed up buses for Bronx bus riders. That analysis looked at the demand for bus service, how buses are performing, the service levels that MTA is proposing for those roadways, neighborhood demographics, and feasibility of implementation. And we selected the 10 highest ranking corridors for bus priority projects that would accompany the redesign that we would start looking at in the 2020 implementation season next year as we sort of put that together. And you can see the list of the corridors here. Gun Hill Road, Fordham Road, as you know, we already have select bus service on Fordham Road, our first select bus service project 12 years ago already. So we're taking another look at that. Communities change, demographics change, land uses change, to see how we can help that bus continue to work better. So that's one of the projects we're going to take a hard look at this year. University Avenue, Tremont, E.L. Grant, 181st Street and Washington Bridge, 167th, 68th Street, 149th Street, and Story Avenue are the 10 corridors we have on our list. You can go to the next page. And I think a lot of you here, we have a lot of select bus service in the Bronx, so you've had a chance to see the toolbox, we call it, for the kinds of projects that we do, from bus lanes to shorter queue jump lanes, transit signal priority, how we address curbside management and bus stop accessibility. I also want to point out that in addition to those corridors, we're planning to do some other things too. So we are bringing transit signal priority, which helps buses get a faster green light or hold the green light for buses to the BX6 this year and to the BX12 next year on Fordham, Pelham Parkway. We're also studying we're doing an accessibility study of all bus stops citywide to look at their physical accessibility. So all 14,000 bus stops citywide, we're actually analyzing to make sure people who have mobility issues can get on the bus, can get to the bus, can get on the bus. And my team will be finishing up that study this year, and that'll help us prioritize what we can repair in-house, what we would have to do capital projects on, et cetera, and coordinating that, of course, with where bus stops will be located in the future with MTA. And we hope to be able to prioritize some of those as we're looking at projects through the Bronx in 2020. And also looking at how we can add additional benches to bus stops that are existing. These are all some of the opportunities we're looking at. Oh, we're also studying queue jumps. Where can we install queue jump signals at bus stops that are ready for those without having to do a big project, but really just be opportunistic about things that are already in place in the city. And yeah, so I think that's what we have to say. I think we've had some good success in the Bronx with the projects we've done. We're experiencing good success in other parts of the city with 14th Street and other elements. As you know, DOT and the city, the mayor has a plan, a goal of implementing a 25% speed improvement in buses. So that's what we're really working hard to achieve, and we're really excited that Bronx gets to be the first place we can really focus on with MTA to make a really big difference for bus riders. Thank you.
All right, back over to me. So here are some just updates since the draft plan. Some of this is going to be outreach related to give you a taste of the things we've been out doing. We've posted at a lot of subway stations. We went out and did about 13 different on-street engagements in the Bronx and in Upper Manhattan for the routes that enter into there. So what that means is we were at key bus transfer hubs, bus to subway hubs, out there giving take ones to inform people about our plan, to direct them to our website, and even just answer questions they had about anything we're proposing. We had 9 different open houses for the draft plan, 8 in the Bronx and 1 in Upper Manhattan in August. We've had an online survey, we've been out in the street, we've also had a lot of website views, and we've done a lot of social media posts. The 16,000 you see is how many of the take ones we distributed on buses and in hand. And we've been working to get the word out as best we can to customers. So here, I mentioned it briefly, but this is walking through, in the draft plan, there were a lot of big changes to Co-op City. We heard what people had to say. We were out there at the open house. There was a large rally, 1,000 people came out. So in moving forward, we spoke with them. They really wanted routings to stay how they were in Co-op, and they were willing to forego certain things like increased frequency on the 23. We're still increasing the frequency on it, but not as much as we were going to. They were okay with the 29 being shortened to terminate at Pelham Bay Park Station. However, they wanted the Q50 coming there at least in the peak periods. So in Co-op, a lot of what we did was just ensure that the routings there met their needs and then move forward. Some folks here will see that there's only one small routing change now. Initially, we were proposing that the BX8 kind of take on a segment of the BX24 and then go down and terminate around Layton. And the 24 would take on the remainder of the 8. We had a lot of opposition to that at our open house. Folks weren't happy with that. So we were going to maintain the BX8 as is today, with a small change in alignment on the BX24. And it's a little bit hard to see in this map, but I'll try my best to show you. I'm going to set this down for 1 second. Right here, it becomes a bit skinnier today. We expanded it slightly. When we step away from Stadium Avenue, we heard from a lot of customers they didn't want a bus operating down a street where their children were playing. Oh, one last thing. We stayed away from Stadium Avenue. We had a lot of opposition to something running down that road. There's a lot of children playing. I read comments personally and heard from people, my children play basketball in the street or they're out playing football. So we pulled it away from there. Also, we got inquiries about the BX 4042 changing in Throgs Neck. I'm sure some of you heard buzz about Balcom Avenue and the potential of taking that barrier away. We're not taking the barrier away. It will remain as is, and we won't be running a bus through Balcom Avenue south of the barrier. So the alignments of the BX 40 and 42 and Throgs Neck will remain the same as they are today. And then express bus service changes. Oh, yeah.
You mentioned a slight change.
Wait, I'm going to ask. Yeah, I'll answer at the end, actually. So for express bus service changes, the main thing is that under the draft plan, we were proposing to take the BXM4 off of the Concourse. We got a lot of customers that did not like that. They wanted the BXM4 to stay on the Concourse, so we kept it on the Concourse. Weekdays only, peak periods only. In addition, we are introducing the new BXM5. That would cover the segment of the BXM4 today up in the northern part. And that would give people in the northern part of the current route direct service straight into Manhattan. We also have the BXM11. Today, the BXM11 operates on White Plains Road directly under the elevated and often is kind of competing with local buses, getting stuck behind them and having to maneuver around the pillars. In the final plan, the BXM11 will operate on Norwood Avenue, going down and then connecting over to its current alignment to get into Manhattan. And also there's the BXM17. In the draft plan, we were proposing a new express route from Co-op City to Lower Manhattan. Co-op City said, give us these other local bus elements. We don't want the express route if that's the case. So that's why it's no longer in the final plan. And now are some next steps. Do you want me to turn it over to you now, Ms. Carter? Here you go.
Thank you very much. You heard an awful lot. This is our next steps. As you can see on the screen, we're going to be doing community board presentations. Now, this is your part. I will reach out to each one of your community boards again. We're going to the full board. And some of you, thank you very much, have given me dates for you full boards. Some of them, I'm going to need them. I'm going to reach out to each one of your community boards again. And the reason why we need full board is that you received over a 300-page document. We need to be able to make sure that the right amount of people see this document. That's not why we're having open houses or things like that. We want to come to each one of your individual full boards to be able to show you. What you saw was a snapshot. Everything that we're talking about is in those documents that I sent you the other day. Each route, what was changed, what was not changed, are in those documents. We want to be able to share it with your full board meetings, and we want to be able to take all of your individual questions there, because we have 12 boards. We have 12 different sections of the borough. Each one of you probably have a very unique question for us, and that's why we're emphasizing the full board. You're going to see pop-up events and informational sessions. I'm going to be sending you those information. Remember during the summer we were out there, we did a lot of on-street engagements. We're going to be doing that. We're also going to be doing actually open houses in the subway stations. I'll be sending you those locations because we need to reach the people. You're getting off the subway, you're going onto a bus. We need to be able to let people know what this plan is about. And then, as you can see, we're going to be doing, those who may not have used the trip planner, which is on our website, the trip planner is going to be able to show you how the new plan is going to work for their trip. And then we got the outreach. I'm going to be seeing you, you're going to see me. At the beginning of this presentation, you heard me say that we're still going to have time to change some of this. This actual plan is not actually going to be implemented until fall or summer of 2020. We still got a whole year. That's why we need to come out to you. That's why we need to come out to the community boards. That's why we need to hear what you have to say. Most of you probably know our website, and I'm sorry it's not on the screen, but I'm going to give you the actual website. And the reason why for that is that once most of you have gone through the documents, once we've come to your boards, you're going to be able to not only give us comments, but you're also going to be able to give comments on the website. You may want to start doing that now. So the actual website address is, give me another white piece of paper. It's newmta.info. New.mta.info, I'm sorry, thank you, Jessica. New.mta.info/Bronx Bus Redesign. Many of you probably seen it already because I know if you've seen them with the existing condition report and the other plans. So the most important thing for us to even be able to address any of your questions, I mean, we'll take a couple now, but I think that when we come to your individual community boards, we'll be able to really focus more on your concerns. So, Deputy?
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I'm sorry, I thought I had a sneeze. I think I saw Mr. Hall.
Okay, Ms. Carter, I just want to thank you for listening and engaging the community in terms of making the changes that you've made. My question is, down the road, 6 months, a year, if you find that some of these routes are not working the way we planned them to work, will you be able to make changes?
You mean after the implementation,
After the implementation?
in a year? Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. McManus.
Remember, it's being implemented this time next year. So we still have a whole year to still have conversation. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you? When you first started the select bus service on Fordham Road, they brought it. I was chairing the Land Use Committee on Community Board 11, so they brought it to us. And I said to the fellow, I have no problem with it, except you didn't put a select bus service at the main entrance at Jacoby Hospital. He says, oh yeah, we looked at that, but we decided not to do it. So I was just wondering, I'm happy that you're going to, relook that over, and maybe you could think about that.
Right, because
I live right across the street. I'm always there all the time. I'm on the auxiliary. I see dozens and dozens of people crossing that street and getting on the bus right on Seymour. So it's just a suggestion. And the other thing, and maybe this is for you, Ms. Carter, I read in the paper that they lose $250 million in bus route fares. Now, I know only a little anecdotal. I don't ride the bus as much as the subway, but I do take the express bus into Manhattan often, and I sit in the front because I get seasick, so I see everything that's happening. There has to be at least a half a dozen people come on the bus and don't pay. So I don't know what you could do about that, but just something that I was wondering if there was, if what was reported in the paper was true, and how you can alleviate that. Thank you.
Mr. Crespo.
Thank you. My question, very simple. Because every time we want to ask for change, we always get that statement. It's either we got to bring in DOT, or we got to bring in this agency or that agency. When you're coming to the boards, will you be coming with DOT to the boards?
Absolutely.
At the same time?
Absolutely.
So this way we won't be getting
Nope.
that theory.
Absolutely.
You can
Like
still
they're
get
here
it, but they'll
today.
be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
There'll be another agency that needs to come in.
We'll find another one for you. Absolutely, yes, sir.
So mine is just really more of it's a comment. It's really I want to commend MTA on this process. I've seen you're not a city agency per se, but I've seen a lot of city agencies do outreach for things that are very far reaching. And I want to just commend you guys. I've been to some of the events. I've seen your outreach plan. I mean, you guys, listen, you did a lot of work in a very short amount of time, and you guys have delivered what you said you would do. You've come back, you've listened to people, and I implore other city agencies, if you're here, this is a good model for people to use, because I've been to some of your events, and I really just want to commend you guys for the work that you've done.
Thank you, sir. So as I said, I am definitely going to reach out for the
I
dates.
just want to second that motion. Jackie's always been great over the years, but let me just an aside. I just want to make a point. There was, and I was going to do it offline, but let me just mention it. There was Third Avenue, Navarro. There were Third Avenue safety improvements. We had a nice meeting. There was a presentation at St. Anne's Avenue, Third Avenue, about reconfiguring as it relates to the bike lanes there. I just want to make note, there is a northbound bus stop right at that island. I just would not like it moved So there was some consideration for the movement of. I
Yeah,
just want to make sure that we can.
So to your point, John, we're working on that with transit, so we'll get back to you with an answer shortly.
See?
But I am aware of it, and I know that we're working on something.
Mr. Martinez.
So, the BX34, did you guys analyze the impact rerouting it would have on the Serbian Gardens senior home facility that's located on Bay Bridge and East 198?
Yes, I believe you asked this in July as well.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. We've looked at that. There's bus routes adjacent, 2 blocks one way, 2 blocks another, depending if you're going to go to the Grand Concourse or if you're going to go to Webster. I do know that there's senior centers there, and we've been hearing from folks. We looked at it and still thought it would be faster for a lot of the BX34 customers to go on Webster Avenue. But we've also been asked by the Borough President's Office to take a second look at that route, just in the general routing we're proposing for the final plan. So we're open to evaluating one more time. We've heard from folks. We're just really trying to move the greatest number of BX34 riders as fast as we can. But we recognize that there are seniors that would be affected, and we're happy to come to your community board and speak with you more on that.
Please. Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Morning, Jackie. Jackie, you know we had talked a lot about the BX33 and the issues that we had in the southern portion of the district, particularly in Port Morris. Now, we also went out on a tour where we're trying to establish some new routes in that corridor where a lot of new housing has happened, particularly towers. Is that portion of this process that we've had going to be part of this discussion moving forward next week at my board meeting?
Currently, no. No, and that's only because we still need to continue to work with DOT.
So I think we're going to have to come back to you, Cedric, to sort of talk about that, because I know that also involved with the proposal we had a couple of months ago about one-way conversions in that area. So for now, we're not making any changes to the street grid. We have other ideas on how to alleviate the issue with turn radiuses and like getting through traffic through, but for now, we're not going to address that conversion plan that we brought to you earlier this year and late last year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Seeing none, well, thank you so much for your presentation today.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be calling all of you.
We're moving directly into the portion of our meeting where we ask for announcements, current events that are coming up, anything that anyone on the boards would like to announce. Now's the time for that. Yes, Mr. Dudley and then Mr. Askew. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to announce that the Community Board has had a nice collaboration with the New York City Office of Emergency Management. We had for emergency preparedness purposes, there was a boot camp, so we did a collaboration with them. We had a number of community-based organizations. It was at Bariqua College. It's October 22nd, and we got a second one coming up October 29th. It runs from about 9 to 1. But it's a great forum, so I extend an invitation for anyone to attend. The college is at 890 Washington Avenue. It's going to be on the 4th floor in the faculty, I think, colloquium room. So it's good. We're going through a number of different exercises. It's all about preparedness now in the event of natural disasters or emergencies. So it was a collaboration that we did, and there was 2 half-day sessions. One just passed, another one's coming up on October 29th from about 9 to 1. So I extend an invitation.
Thank you. I just want to ask that everybody just stay sort of put we got like about 10 more minutes. If we could hold side conversations till the end of the meeting and sort of keep everyone sort of stationary while we finish up this portion. It'll probably take no more than 10 more minutes, and that will, eliminate some of the background noise, and it'll help us get through it as well. So I think Mr. Acevedo, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. I just want to announce that this coming Saturday, the 26th, Community Board 2 is having its annual Halloween parade. The weather should be nice. I think it's our 34th or 35th annual parade. We hold the second largest Halloween parade in the city, behind the one in Greenwich Village. All are welcome. Lots of giveaways for the kids, raffles. We're having contests for costumes. We have some marching bands coming in from other states to participate and compete, and all are welcome. So I just want to announce that.
What street? What street?
It starts at 12 o'clock, and the gathering place is on Simpson in Westchester. Then we march up and down Southern Boulevard, or down Southern Boulevard, and then we end at the Tiffany Street Plaza. We have a stage there. We have some big sponsors. Universal is one of our sponsors this year. It's a Tim Burton theme also, and we always get about 1,000 or so participants to come out. So should be very fun, and we invite everyone to come through. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Thank you. Over here and then over here. Mr. Hall, share the microphone.
Yes, thank you. I need to make a statement. Judge Suarez just ruled against my community on the road dining plan. He did that without listening to verbal arguments from the fire department and police department that said this road dining plan is going to impact their response time. We had thousands of petitions from our community. We had 2 town hall meetings which overwhelmingly opposed this. Our business community opposes this. Our elected officials all are opposing it, and yet it's going through. And the last time I looked, we still lived in a democracy where the people had some say. Unfortunately, what happened was a travesty, and I just wanted to put that on public record.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And then Mr. Martinez. You first.
Okay. So next week on the 29th and 30th, Community Board 4 is partnering with the Urban Land Institute to do what's called a technical assistance panel. It really is sort of a 2-day workshop, and the scope is really around city-owned property in Community District 4. And on the 30th at 6:30 at the New Settlement Community Center, the panelists will verbally present their recommendations, and the Urban Land Institute will actually issue a report at the end of the year. But if anyone's interested and wants to hear from them, 6:30 on October 30th at the New Settlement Community Center.
Thank you.
I'm running a sock and glove drive for our homeless veterans. As most of you guys know, there's a very big homeless veteran population in New York City, and their #1 request is fresh socks and gloves. So I'll be providing the flyer so that it can get disseminated, and it has a list of drop-off locations.
Very good. I want to also encourage everyone to email your flyers to Marisol so they can be distributed to not just the folks in the room, but also to our email list as well. And we clearly have a lot of great projects and endeavors going on in the community, and it's important that we share them all around. I want to, oh wow, I had a moment, I had a thought, and it'll come back to me. That's what my mother always says. If it's important, it'll come back to you. I'm going to just highlight the Borough President's Office has a Halloween Spooktacular and Pumpkin Fest Thursday, October 31st, between 4:30 and 8 p.m., located at the 47th Precinct. So that's in Community Board 12. 4111 Laconia Avenue. We're partnering with the precinct. It threatens to be a really good time with all types of events and costumes and revelry for the kids. So we hope that not only folks from the Community Board 12, but anyone that's interested in celebrating a nice, safe Halloween will do so at that time. And Tommy has an announcement.
Good morning. Good morning. I just have two announcements for upcoming meetings that we will be hosting here. The first is for Community Board chairpersons, district managers, and members of your executive board, your officers, and that will be a mandatory meeting with the Conflict of Interest Board. Borough President has asked us to bring in all of you to go over some Conflict of Interest Board issues that have come up over the last year or so, and he gives you the opportunity to ask Alex Kipp, who will be doing the presentation, questions on anything that you may have. We know we do this sometimes, but also it's usually a very short period of time. This will at least give us some time, and it'll also give your officers the opportunity to understand the conflict of interest. You folks have probably gone through it once or twice before, but we thought it was important that officers of your board, especially your treasurers, when it comes to some financial issues, are in attendance. So we will be sending out a note from the Deputy Borough President inviting you to that meeting. It'll be on November the 19th. It'll be here in this room at 6 p.m. No, November, I'm sorry, I apologize. November 19th at 6 p.m. here in this room. The second meeting will be for district managers. Over the past year, I've gotten questions regarding record retention, which the Department of Records and Information Services has agreed to come to a meeting here with the district managers to talk a couple of things. One is to update the record retention schedule, because the one that I've shared with all of you a couple of times is way out of date. There are things on that document that don't exist any longer. So Doris, which is the agency, wants to update that list. They will also talk about the actual how the board's supposed to retain these documents. They will talk to you about how you retain emails as well, and how emails are supposed to be retained, and the time frame, and then also the how to electronically retain documents that are paper that you want to create computer documents for, computer files for, and then be able to get rid of the paper. So this is something that a number of you have asked for in the past. Pearl Boatswine, who is the name I've always referred people to, will be coming up with her agency. That probably will be the first week of December, probably the Wednesday of December. I'm just waiting for a confirmation from Pearl. Probably downstairs, either in the BOEDC conference room or upstairs in the ninth floor conference room. So both of those items you will be getting emails from, but I just wanted to get it on your radar for now. I'm not. It'll probably be in the morning. It'll probably be at 10. But that's a district manager meeting. Obviously, you're more than well in 6 o'clock.
Tom, question. The conflict of interest meeting, is that for the total executive board or just the...
We've said officers, so your first vice chair, your treasurer, your secretary, that type of thing.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, well, I forgot what I was going to say, and it did not come back to me. That wasn't it, but yes, it was not it. That wasn't it. Sunday, we are, the Borough President's Office, in partnership with as many partners, we'll have our annual tour, the Bronx Bike Tour. As you may already know, it is the only biggest, largest free bike tour in the city. There's a 25-mile route and a 40-mile route, and it takes you through the Bronx. It is truly a tour of the Bronx. There are other tours that don't come into the Bronx as much as we'd like, but this promises to be an exciting tour. We're going through the botanical gardens, we're going through all neighborhoods in the Bronx. It's an enjoyable time. It's an annual event, and you can get your steps in, or your bike in, or all of your exercise. And so I hope that if you haven't already registered, it's not too late. You can register online, and you can come see us right here on 161st Street on Sunday. Our next meeting is November 21st, and it will be here in the building. Possibly not in this room, but definitely in this building. I still don't remember, so I'll write it down and tell you next month. As always, I want to thank you all for coming. I thank you for your participation. Thank you for your engagement, and thank you for your service. Have a great week, and disperse into your respective communities, and love.
We are Sam Square Thai Cuisine. We're here in Riverdale for 16 years. Very beautiful and nice neighborhood. We do the authentic Thai. We have the lovely customers here, so very wonderful to be here in the Bronx. Because we're here a long time, most of the customers became friends, and we serving them as a family. The most popular is pad Thai noodles, stir-fried pad Thai noodles, shrimp or chicken. In one order, at least we have pad Thai noodles. And we have duck, Penang curry, spicy, very fine food. People love it. We have grilled chicken or frank steak in Thai style. We call tiger fries, which is very tender and tasty that you cannot miss it. And the pineapple fried rice, that's the wonderful dish that people always ask for. With the fried rice that we stir fry with Thai style and then pineapples. And we have somtam salad, which is with the raw green papaya salad and with the lime vinaigrette, which is very healthy, and then that's the one most popular vegetarian dish. On Wednesday, we have free wine night. We have a lot of crowd here on Wednesday. They're having a good time. The decorations here, we make the Thai atmosphere. You could see different colors, they all comes together. And that's what we design of our restaurant to be like.